Have you ever faced moments when moving forward seemed impossible? Perhaps you felt overwhelmed by problems, injustices, or the weight of difficult decisions. David, the man destined to be king, faced these very challenges and left us an extraordinary example of how faith, kindness, and trust in God's plan can transform our journey. In this video, we'll explore David's kindness and how it reveals precious lessons of grace and faithfulness. We'll journey through the highs and lows of his story, from moments of great adversity to choices that required Christian patience and biblical wisdom. Each situation David encountered offers practical lessons for the challenges we face today. Stay with me as we discover how David's care for Abiathar, his heartwarming encounter with Jonathan, and even his remarkable attitude towards Saul in the cave of En-Gedi teach us how to overcome challenges with unshakable faith. So, shall we begin this incredible journey? Prepare to be inspired, and by the end, share how these lessons resonate with your life. Together, let's learn how forgiveness and mercy can be powerful tools to bring us closer to God and one another. Part 1. Protection and refuge in times of persecution. Abiathar and the tragedy of the priests. Picture this: David, fleeing from Saul, hears the devastating news that Abiathar, the sole survivor of a horrifying massacre of priests, has come to seek refuge with him. Despite his own struggles, David demonstrates extraordinary kindness by welcoming Abiathar and ensuring his safety. He offers not only physical shelter but also spiritual security, saying, "Stay with me, do not fear. For he who seeks my life seeks your life. But with me you shall be safe." Here, we see David's kindness in action, a clear lesson in hospitality and caring for those in need, even during times of personal hardship. How often do we feel overwhelmed and think, "How can I help someone when I'm barely managing myself?" David teaches us that when we open our hearts to others, we reflect God's mercy. Jonathan's visit, strength in friendship. In the wilderness, where uncertainty seemed to reign, David experiences a moment of relief and encouragement. Jonathan, his faithful friend, finds him in his hiding place. Imagine hearing these words, "Do not fear, for you shall surely be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you." This friendship is a powerful example of spiritual encouragement, the kind of support that not only helps us endure but also reminds us of God's promises. Do you have friends who strengthen your faith and bring God's goodness to mind during your darkest moments? Through this encounter, David renews his confidence in trusting God's plan. He shows us that spiritual friendships are invaluable tools, especially when we face seemingly insurmountable challenges. As we delve deeper into David's story, it's clear that his actions reflect profound biblical wisdom. But how did he respond when faced with the opportunity to confront his pursuer directly? Did David use this moment to seek revenge against Saul? Get ready for one of the most impactful decisions of his life. Part 2. Choices with Conscience. The Cave of En-Gedi. An opportunity for revenge versus faithfulness to God. Imagine standing face to face with the one determined to take your life. This was David's reality when Saul unknowingly entered the very cave where David and his men were hiding. The chance for revenge seemed handed to him on a silver platter. His men urged him, "This is the day the Lord has delivered your enemy into your hands." But instead of giving in to temptation, David displayed a truly inspiring faith in adversity. He cut off a small piece of Saul's robe and said, "I will not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed." This decision reflects deep biblical wisdom and an unwavering trust in God's plan, even when it seemed logical to take matters into his own hands. How often are we tempted to act impulsively, especially when we've been wronged? David teaches us that trusting God and acting with integrity is always the right path, even when it's the hardest one. Humility and temporary reconciliation. As Saul left the cave, David did something even more astonishing. He revealed himself, bowed in respect, and declared his innocence. Imagine Saul's shock upon hearing, "Why do you listen to men who say, 'David seeks your harm'?" Today, The Lord delivered you into my hand in the cave, but I spared you." This act of forgiveness and mercy moved Saul to tears. He confessed, "You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with good, while I have rewarded you with evil." Though this reconciliation was temporary, it demonstrates how love and patience can disarm even our enemies. Yet, David's journey was far from over. His next encounter would be with a wise and courageous woman who would forever change his life. How did Abigail's words transform David's heart during a moment of anger and impulsiveness? Part 3. Abigail's Wisdom, a Voice of Peace. Nabal, foolishness versus wisdom. Imagine David's indignation when Nabal, a wealthy yet foolish man, refused to help him, even after David's men had protected Nabal's shepherds and flocks. Consumed with anger, David prepared to retaliate, an impulsive moment more reflective of Saul than of David's kindness. But then came Abigail. Without hesitation, she prepared a generous gift and placed herself in David's path, humbly asking forgiveness for her husband's actions. Her calm, biblical wisdom broke the cycle of violence that was about to unfold. Imagine the courage and grace it took to face an angry leader and gently calm his fury with words of peace. How often do we act in the heat of the moment without reflecting? Abigail teaches us that wisdom and humility can transform even the most tense situations, bringing reconciliation where conflict seemed inevitable. David acknowledges divine correction. Abigail not only prevented disaster but also helped David recognize his own mistakes. He responded, "Blessed is the Lord who sent you to meet me today. Blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me from shedding blood." David accepted her rebuke with gratitude, showing that even leaders chosen by God need correction. This is a powerful lesson in Christian patience and humility. Being open to wise counsel can save us from irreversible mistakes. Abigail reminds us that each of us has the power to be instruments of peace and change. But how would David handle one of his most vulnerable moments, when he was tempted to abandon his calling? The next chapter reveals how he faced a test of faith in foreign lands. Part 4. Lessons from a Tested Faith. David and the Philistines. A questionable decision. In a moment of despair and exhaustion, David made a surprising decision. He sought refuge among the Philistines, Israel's historic enemies. This choice was driven by fear that Saul would eventually succeed in killing him. He was weary from constant persecution, and his faith, though strong, began to waver. This reminds us that even the greatest servants of God experience moments of doubt. Faith in adversity isn't about never being afraid, it's about returning to God even after we falter. David's temporary alliance with the Philistines teaches us that impulsive decisions can have lasting consequences. Yet, even in our mistakes, God works to redirect us toward His purpose. Have you ever felt so pressured by circumstances that you made an impulsive decision? David reminds us that even in weakness, there are lessons to be learned. Lessons of care and trust. While living among the Philistines, David continued to wage war against Israel's enemies, staying committed to God's calling. However, his alliance with the Philistines raised questions and challenges. He had to balance protecting his life with remaining faithful to the people God had called him to lead. This period in David's life underscores the importance of trusting God's plan, even when the path ahead is unclear. Like David, we face moments when our faith is stretched to its limits. But God remains faithful, guiding us even when we feel lost. By turning back to God and renewing his trust, David shows us that there's always a way back. This leads us to the final question: how can we apply David's kindness and patience to the challenges we face today? Conclusion: David, a model of mercy and dependence on God. David's story is a testament to how kindness, faith, and Christian patience can guide us through life's challenges. He faced persecution, made difficult choices, and even stumbled, but he always returned to the Lord with humility and trust. His forgiveness and mercy, especially in sparing Saul, demonstrate that trusting God's plan is more powerful than seeking human solutions. Like David, we all face moments when our faith is tested. Whether in times of doubt, as when David sought refuge with the Philistines, or in moments of courage, as in the cave of En-Gedi, we are called to reflect God's grace in our actions. His story reminds us that every challenge can be an opportunity to practice biblical wisdom and strengthen our relationship with God. Now, reflect. How can you apply David's lessons to your journey? Have you experienced moments when patience and forgiveness brought peace to difficult situations? Share your experiences in the comments. Who knows? Your story might inspire someone else to overcome their challenges with faith. Let's learn from David to wait on the Lord, trust in His providence, and act with mercy even in times of adversity. And remember, God is working in your heart, even now, to transform you into the image of Christ. If you've reached this point in the prayer, type yes in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more biblical reflections and stories that strengthen your faith. Until the next video, may your journey of faith be abundantly blessed.